Hello everybody. Well, another week over. Just have an update on the garage and Save DSA and a few bits about Doncaster as well. Busy week at the garage, campaigns and Save DSA campaigns moving forward, and we're currently booked well in advance. About 2 weeks at the minute. Not a bad thing, can't complain. You know, we've been sharing plenty of seasonal maintenance advice this week on our social media page. You know, checking your oil levels, your coolant levels, your tyre pressures and tread depths, you know, before setting off on summer journeys. A few minutes checking the basics can often prevent a breakdown, a delay, or even an expensive repair. As always, we've had some interesting work through the workshop. One job in particular stood out this week. We've had a Volkswagen Transporter Campervan arrived after suffering turbocharger failure. Now, unfortunately, the failed turbo was leaking oil into the inlet and exhaust systems, causing what's known as an engine runaway. Revved uncontrollably beyond its normal rev limit. Even turning the key off, won't stop this happening. Thankfully, the engine eventually stopped and the vehicle was recovered to the garage. Now, the owner of the vehicle had put some more oil in it and just started it up quickly just to see what it sounded like, and it sounded okay. When we got it into the garage now, we did the same, to be fair. We checked the oil level and water and coolant and started the engine up. And to be fair, it sounded absolutely spot on. No rattles, no bangs, no issues at all. So with that in mind, we supplied and fitted a replacement turbocharger. Everything looked great. It got road tested. Noticed it had a coolant warning light on. So we checked the coolant level and topped that up and road tested it again. Coolant warning light came on again. During our final checks, we noticed a small coolant leak, and investigation suggests the head gasket has failed. Stress is placed on the end during the Runaway incident. So what started out as a turbo replacement is now it's a much bigger job. This one we'll be tackling next week, hopefully, and we'll let you know how we get on with it. But it's a perfect example of why proper diagnosis is so important. Sometimes fixing the obvious fault reveals a second issue, that wasn't apparent. And this is what can happen sometimes at the garage. You fix the main problem or the issue that you see in front of you, get that sorted, get that running, but then something else crops up. Not the first time this happens, and no matter how hard you try, your diagnostics to get exactly everything on paper, what's wrong with vehicles, until you've got them running properly and you can put the coolant system and the head gasket and everything under stress, you're not going to find that out just by running it up to make sure it sounds lovely. It's one of those things, unfortunately. As always, thanks to everyone who continues to support the garage. As an independent local business, people's support really does make a difference. So, on the airport front, the campaign continues to move forward positively. The group continues to grow and engagement remains strong across Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube and other platforms. This week we've continued sharing updates on recruitment with ATC, the Air Traffic Control, and infrastructure improvements and the progress being made behind the scenes as Doncaster Sheffield Airport moves forward to reopening. Earlier this week, the Airport Consultative Committee met on Monday to discuss a number of airport-related topics. One of the key outcomes was the appointment of the chair of the Noise Committee, which will play an important role as the airport moves forward towards reopening and future operations. We also received a brief update from Fly Doncaster on progress across the airport behind the scenes. Lots going on. Now we've done level 1 and 2. And the next stage is expected to go live soon. It's currently with the Civil Aviation Authority for approval of the consultation process to have their say. This is an important part of the reopening process and will allow residents, communities, aviation users and stakeholders to help shape future airspace arrangements in a way that works as well as possible for everyone. So as more information becomes available, we'll continue sharing these updates through the Save DSA social media channels. One thing I'd also like to mention this week is a public survey launched on Wednesday by Fly Doncaster and Munich Airport International. They're looking for as much feedback as possible from local residents, businesses and potential passengers. And it's a genuine opportunity for people to help shape the future of the airport. The survey covers travel habits, destinations, routes, and what people would like to see when the airport car parking, and all sorts of different questions filled in. And let's get them as much information as we can. It's an opportunity for everyone to take part, and the more information they've got, the better help, which will help guide future planning and airline discussions. It's encouraging to see the airport team actively seeking public input and involving the community in the process. It's also encouraging to see more positive conversations taking place around the airport and the wider opportunities it can bring for jobs, training, investment and the local economy. And this has been mentioned many times, hasn't it? But as always, the focus remains on facts, accurate information and supporting the people working hard to bring aviation back to Doncaster. Positive stories about Doncaster this week, and it's so easy to focus on the negatives. There's an awful lot of people spreading negatives about our city and the city centre, but there are plenty of businesses, organisations, volunteers and investors working hard to make Doncaster a better place. One event that stood out this week was Doncaster Chamber's annual Doncaster What's Next conference, held at Shore Lane. The event brought together business leaders, educators, investors, local decision makers and organisations from across the region to discuss the future of Doncaster, future investment opportunities, skills development, economic growth and how we continue building a stronger local economy. It's encouraging to see so many people focused on creating opportunities for local people and supporting businesses that help drive our city forward. Now, I've always said Doncaster has huge potential, whether it's the airport, obviously that's got great potential, city centre investment, local businesses, education, logistics, manufacturing, regeneration projects. There are a lot of people working hard behind the scenes to make positive things happen. This week we've also seen continued discussions around the city centre, ongoing work to improve public spaces. An example of this is the new park space at the side of the college. That site's been cleaned and cleared. It was a brown site, so it was an industrial site that's had some money spent on it to clear the pollution or possible pollution, and it's been turned into a park at the moment. That site's now ready for development, and there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about the city's future when we've got sites like that not far from the city centre, and it's just waiting for somebody to come up with a solution or an idea. Absolutely brilliant. Now this week actually, we're launching the first episode of Car Reviews by Chaddy. It's not going to be a typical car review channel. They're usually a journalist that's got a brand new car from the dealer and you just tell everybody. As garage owners, and I'm an engineer, we see what actually in is my own car, a Toyota CHR GR Sport Hybrid. And I've given an honest opinion on the reliability, ownership cost, common faults, MOT history, can't even speak, MOT history, and whether I'd recommend one. Now I've got one, of course I'd recommend it. Absolutely brilliant, love modern technology, self-charging hybrid, does everything you want it to do. But don't listen to me on here. Go onto YouTube. It's on the Mark Chadwick Chaddy YouTube channel, and take a look. Subscribe, because this video will be on there as well, along with others. Airport, garage, Doncaster, a bit about F1 and touring cars or holidays. It's just a channel where I share everything that I'm passionate about. Next week, we hope to have an update on the Volkswagen Transporter Campervan and whether the engine survives its latest challenge. And the Fiat 500 from last week with the corroded rear axle. That's back in this week for a replacement rear axle. The rear axle arrived yesterday, and we booked it in for next week, so we hope to have a discussion about that. We might even do a video on that. If you haven't already, make sure you're following us on Facebook or following me on Facebook, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That'd be really appreciated. Thank you. Now, thanks to everyone who continues to support Stadium Garage and to follow the Save DSA campaign. It's nearly 4 years that's been going. And, you know, watch the video, share the posts and get involved in the discussions. You know, it's all about positivity though, you know. And whether you're here for garage content, airport updates, or just because you care about Doncaster, your support is genuinely appreciated. I'm Chadwick. Have a great weekend. And remember, you know, will the Volkswagen Transporter Campervan survive its head gasket repair and live to fight another day? Can we get the wheels back on the Fiat 500? You'll have to tune in next week to find out. Take care, everybody, and have a great weekend. Thank you.